Ron, every movie has its interesting origins. For example, it comes from a book. It comes from a theater piece. Yours came from a dinner conversation in Italy.
Well, how about that? My partner Brian Grazer, who's one of the producers of the movie, he's good at those sort of what if ideas. I mean, that's how Splash was born years ago. So in this case, he was telling the story. He maybe seeing this woman with red hair, kind of looked a little bit like my wife Cheryl's red hair, and but clearly it whoever that redheaded woman was not with me, and that worried him a little bit. And so he saw soon that it wasn't Cheryl, but he began to think, well, Jesus, what the hell? What if it had been? What would I do? How would I approach it? And what would it mean? And he and I talked about it. It made us laugh. But he kept testing that idea on people, and he found it. At one dinner party I was at, it just kicked off a lot of lively conversation, a lot of laughs, and then he talked to Vince Vaughn about it, and Vince completely related to it, and wanted to be that guy in that vice, trying to deal with how to proceed after that. And that's when I began to feel like we were really onto something special, or an original idea that was thought-provoking, and Vince Vaughn is the guy in trouble. Well, that's funny.
But you're also dealing with the institution of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you really break it down, the film deals with trust, with honesty, with the fragility of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And that's something that anybody who's in a marriage or in any type of relationship could totally relate to. Does that what really gets to the core of a good movie is something that people can identify with?
Different movies achieve, different movies work in different ways, and they can be successful in all kinds of ways. I love a comedy that's entertaining, but gives me a little something more. Great performances, some surprises, some twists and turns. And I think in order to get those twists and turns, there needed to be an idea at the center of this that was real, and the stakes would be meaningful for the audience, so they really get caught into wondering what was going to happen next.
But when you're dealing with an institution of marriage, and you are a married man yourself,
Right.
The discussions of what if, how much did that facilitate on set with yourself, with your other actors? Because many of them are married.
Married, not married, everybody has an opinion about this, and it's interesting. And some people think they know what they would do, but then when they drill down a little more deeply, they realize it's more complicated than they expected. Other people are thrown by the question, to begin with. But look, relationships, friendships, marital relationships, whatever they are, they do depend on this kind of nebulous zone of taking care of somebody, but what does that mean? Is telling them the truth taking care of them? Is denying them the truth taking care of them? Is finding the right moment to tell them partially what they need to know? Is that taking care of them? What about you? If something breaks between you and that person, what will it mean to you? Either personally, professionally, who knows what? And so we're all constantly doing that little dance. And I think that's partly what resonates here with when people watch this movie, is that this is a really intense, heightened version of that. But I know that the more we really looked at that question and examined it, the more truthful we were about it, the funnier the movie got.
But let's talk about the humor and the comedy, because it's been mind-boggling 10 years since you've really done an out-and-out comedy.
Huh?
Has the institution of the genre changed at all?
People expect something that's a little edgier, I think. And I certainly didn't want to do a movie that was an echo of another film from the past. I wanted to find a subject that was very modern, and that could be dealt with both from a directorial standpoint, cinematically, and also from an acting standpoint, in a way that was cutting edge, and yet not necessarily cynical. Truthful, but still with some humanity and some heart there.
But it's interesting, you embody it with these two central characters of Vince Vaughn and Kevin James, two different types of comics in their acting approach.
Yeah.
One's more physical, one is a little bit more intellectual, and yet you've switched the tables. And Vince is the more physical one, and Kevin is the more intellectual and humor.
I think those kind of surprises are really, a part of what I was trying to do with keeping this fresh, keeping the audience a little off balance. So there's nothing about this movie that's exactly what you'd expect, and yet it also doesn't disappoint. It rewards your interest in these actors. So Kevin James is funny. He's funny in a slightly different way than you'd expect. Same with Vince. Yet who knew that Winona Ryder could be this energetic and entertaining and dynamic in this kind of a bad girl role, and she's great in the movie. Jennifer Connelly, who it was great to work with her again, after some years since Beautiful Mind, and I thought she brought a kind of a strength and a kind of an honesty to the story. Also, you wouldn't expect her to necessarily be in this movie. So everything about this is trying to be, entertaining and deliver on those promises, but just tweak things and surprise you in the way that they're done and the way they're presented to you.
But part of that tweaking, I would presume, is because you've got such an amazing array of talent in this movie, you have to give them a little leeway, a little rope to kind of see how far they can get out with. So can you talk a little bit about the improv? What surprised you on set? Was there a moment in the film that made you laugh, that they just kind of went out?
Oh, in fact, there are so many moments where the comedy was just taken to some new level. Some of the concepts that Vince's mind would lead him into were kind of mind blowing. I mean, and yet utterly organic to the character. I mean, he's not improvising like a comic searching for a joke. He improvises 100% out of the spirit of the character and the situation that character is in. And so, he gives this toast at this point, and some of the things he says, just absolutely blew my mind, and it was not the scripted stuff. There's some big laughs from the scripted material as well. There's a fight scene between Vince Vaughn and Channing Tatum that, from the moment we started rehearsing it through to the point when we actually finished shooting it, it kept changing and evolving and getting wilder and weirder and just more delicious all the time. I'm so proud of that, how crazy that sequence is, and how well that works, and some of the ideas there. It was a constant process of just elevating the comedy through the truth of the story, and that's, I think, why the actors wanted to be a part of this movie, because they felt it is honest. It does grow out of really relatable feelings and possibilities, but it goes to a place that's entertaining and hopefully fun for moviegoers.
In the past 10, 15 years, if one looks at your filmography, you have tapped into visual and special effects for some of your movies. Looking at this movie, and maybe there was stuff, but it just seems like that you didn't need any of that.
Yeah, no, this is the special effects are and the explosions are happening on screen because of the actors and what they're bringing to it. And it's a real performance movie. I mean, one of my hopes was that if you like the actors in these movies, you're going to love their performance in this one. And based on our test screenings, we're getting that kind of reaction, starting with Vince and all the way through Kevin and Channing.